By Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, beyond inhumane. 5 suspects remanded over brutal torture of a boy during a multi-day fishing voyage. Oil palm or coconut? Calls intensify to desist all manner of oil palm cultivation in the island.
Palm oil, 75% of production is waste. This is a social hazard. This is a national hazard. Finally, we are going to a global hazard.
Another unwanted first. The biggest haul of synthetic drugs in Sri Lanka seized. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Sunday the 16th of August 2020.
Nava sunlight sakura. Then dikukal pavathina sakura mal suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhamike Kanaka. Let's start with your local stories now. 2 further arrests were made today by the police over the incident where a youth was mercilessly tortured while out on a multi-day fishing voyage. A 16-year-old had been brutally tortured by his fellow crew members while out at sea, and the police said today that there are also claims of the youth being sexually abused by the same men. The matter was thrust into public focus after AdaDerana brought it to light yesterday afternoon. Altogether, 5 suspects, including the owner of the fishing vessel, are now in remand custody until the 27th of this month. 16-year-old Shehan Pramod, a resident of Mirissa, had gone out to sea on a fishing trawler on the 28th of June with high hopes of aiding his family's crippled financial state. However, Shehan returned home 48 days later in a state that required severe medical treatment owing to inhumane treatment he was subjected to by his fellow crew members. The reason for the inhuman treatment, as stated by Shehan, is him dropping a large fish back into water when he was reeling in the day's catch. However, following the report aired by AdaDerana last afternoon on the incident, the owner of the fishing trawler had visited Shehan's home and given 25,000 rupees towards his medical expenses. Later, Shehan was admitted to the District General Hospital in Matara. The Kottavila police also launched investigations into the incident following our report, and yesterday they were able to arrest the 64-year-old owner of the fishing trawler along with 2 others that had been on the fishing vessel. Meanwhile, 2 other suspects were also taken into custody today. After the suspects were produced before the Matara Magistrates Court today, the court ordered their remand until the 27th of August.
වෛද්‍යවරුන් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ලබන වාර්තා අනුව ඒ දරුවා ඉතා දැඩි හිංසාවකට ලක් කර තිබෙන බව තමයි අනාවරණ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. දැනට දරුවාගේ ප්‍රකාශය අනුව ලිංගික අපයෝජනයක් සිද්ධ කළ බවට වාර්තා වෙලා තියෙනවා. මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් වෛද්‍යවරයාගේ වාර්තාව ලැබුණාට පස්සේ ඒ සිදු කර තිබෙනවා නම් ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන්ත් අපි ඔවුන්ට විරුද්ධව චෝදනා ඉදිරිපත් කිරීම සඳහා
Meanwhile, State Minister of Fisheries, Harbour Development, Multi-Day Fishing and Fish Exports, Kanchana Wijayasekar, and State Minister of Women and Child Development, PL Nishantha De Silva, called on Shehan Pramod, who is undergoing treatment at the District General Hospital in Matara.
විශේෂයෙන්ම දෙරණ ආයතනයත් ඊයේ දවසේ මේ පිළිබඳව වාර්තා කරා. විශේෂයෙන්ම දැනටමත් මම උපදෙස් දෙලා තියෙනවා මෙම යාත්‍රාවේ එම නැවියන්ගේ බලපත්‍ර අහෝසි කරලා ඔවුන්ට විරුද්ධව නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න කියලා. ඒ නිසා මෙවැනි කටයුතු මින් ඉදිරියට සිදු නොවෙන්න අපි අපේ පැත්තෙන් අපි ඒක වෙනුවෙන් නීතිය තදින්ම ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා.
Later, State Minister of Women and Child Development PL Nishantha De Silva also called at the boys' house in Bandaramulla in Mirissa, who was joined by parliamentarian-elect from the Matara district, Mahindayappa Abewardana.
මේ අම්මලා දවසක් මෙහි ඉඳලා තියෙනවා සර්. නැත්නම් අපිට දැනුම් දුන්නා නම් මෙච්චර පරක්කු වෙන්නේ නැහැ මේක මේ කුඩු කාර්යය. එකෙක් සර් කලින් කේස් එකක් තියෙන එකෙක් ඉන්නවා දැන් සුද්දයි කියන එක. කුජ්ජත් සර්. තල්රබේ. හිටියේ සර් කතරගම ගිහිල්ලා තිස්ස මහරාණේ අර එහෙම ගෙවල් වල නේ. මේකේ වෙලා තියෙන මේ බාලවයස් දරුවෙක් තවන්න බෑනේ. විතක සර් උපැන්න සාතිකයේ ඉඳලා මේ ව්‍යාජ ලෙස සකස් කරලා තියෙනවා. අවුරුදු 16යි මාසෙයි අවුරුදු 19 දක්වා වෙනස් කරලා. විශේෂයෙන්ම මාධ්‍ය ආයතන හැටියට මම හිතන්නේ මාධ්‍ය ආයතනයේ වගකීම් ඉතාමත්ම හොඳින් ඉටු කරන්නට දෙරණ මාධ්‍ය ජාලයට හැකියාව ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. මාධ්‍ය තුලින් තමයි මම ඊයේ රාත්‍රියේ දැනගත්තේ මෙවැනි ඛේදනීය තත්ත්වයන් දිගින් දිගටම ඇති වෙන්න දෙන්න බෑ මේ රට තුල. දරුවන්ට මෙවැනි තත්ත්වයන් ඇතිවීම වළක්වීමට නීතිය තදින්ම ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න කියලා අපි උපදෙස් දුන්නා. අපරාධකරුවන්ට අපි ගැලවිලා ඉන්න ඉඩ තියන්නේ නැහැ.
Enjoy a very smooth shave with the Bic Easy 2 razor. Bic Easy 2.
Now, oil palm cultivation during the past few years led to much controversy, with various factions alleging that it leads to environmental damage. The previous government also had designs to expand oil palm cultivation in the island. However, backlash was swift from environmentalists and activists who screamed that the plant does more damage than good. The expansion plans were then halted by the previous regime, but by then companies had imported oil palm seeds on the approval of the government. A final decision pertaining to oil palm had not been forthcoming for 2 years. Now, with that being the case, senior lecturer of the Department of Plantation Management at the Vayamba University, Dr. Vasantha Gunatilaka, calls for a desist on all designs involving oil palm cultivations in the island, as he laid out why the plant is unsuited to Sri Lanka.
2015, at that time, we had only around 9,000 hectares of palm oil. That government has decided to increase that up to 20,000 hectares. In the world, highest transpiration is in palm oil. Next, high water consumption. In case of oil palm, that is highest. At the same time, coconut 60 to 80 liters, where oil palm 400. In the dry spell, that will go up to 600. Number 2, water quality. This is an international research. A team from Indonesia and US conducted a multi-year research. What they tested? They tested the water drain from natural forest, oil palm cultivation and so on, agroforestry and waterlogging area. Finally, they have found out water drain out from palm oil is hotter than earlier. It is clear that streams flowing through oil palm plantations were hotter and consume more oxygen compared to then what happened to the aquatic life? They don't have enough oxygen. That's the reason. That will reduce our biodiversity. Other countries, they have forest. Indonesia, Malaysia. That's why they have started oil palm there. Do we have forest with us? Maximum 16%. So what is the alternative? We are converting rubber plantation to oil palm. Once we replace, that is deforestation. At the same time, the most pathetic case is the treatment oil effluent. Palm oil, 75% of production is waste. To produce 1 ton of palm oil, effluent 2.5 metric tons. In coconut, that is not such amount, but here 2.5 times of waste as effluent. They release that to surface water, streams. Oil palm consume agrochemicals in 2 ways. Number 1, fertilizer. Number 2, agrochemical. That will destroy our soil and water simultaneously. In the world, there are 5 types of rainforest, Amazon and so on. In Asia, we have Asian tropical rainforest. They store 4,000 tons of carbon per hectare above ground and 91 below. But what would happen if we just introduce this oil palm? That will disturb to that reactivity. Actually, what we have to do, we have to touch, expand coconut and rubber without going this type of danger crop. Please make aware. This is a social hazard. This is a national hazard. Finally, we are going to a global hazard.
A special investigation team of the Dehiwala police has seized the biggest haul of synthetic drugs found in Sri Lanka. The drug is known as Mandi, and the haul is said to carry a street value of around 200 million rupees.
An informant had tipped the police off of the drugs haul, prompting a special team from the Dehiwala police to conduct the raid, supervised by senior superintendent of the police in charge of the Mount Lavenia division. The drugs were found from a storage facility located along the beach road in Patabenimulla of Amalangoda. During the raid, police found 12 kilograms of the synthetic drug known as Mandi. Police said the drugs haul has a street value of around 200 million rupees, and a 33-year-old fisherman identified as Gihan Ishanta from Amalangoda was arrested for the possession of the drugs.
මැන්ඩි යන නාමයෙන් හඳුන්වන මේ මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය භාවිතා කරනවා රාත්‍රී සමාජ ශාලාවල සහ ඒ වගේම සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ජාල සංවිධානය කරනු ලබන සාදවල එම සාදවලට අලෙවි කිරීම සඳහා තමයි මේ මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය ගෙනා බවට දැනට තොරතුරු අනාවරණය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ලංකාවට මෙච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් රැගෙන ආ බවට තොරතුරු අනාවරණය වූ පළවෙනි අවස්ථාව තමයි මේ අවස්ථාව. මෙවර කිලෝ 12ක ප්‍රමාණයක් අත්අඩංගුවට ගැනීමට හැකියාව ලැබුණා. රුපියල් මිලියන 200කට අධික වෙළඳපොළ වටිනාකමක් තිබෙන බව තමයි මේ වෙන විට අනාවරණය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
In the meantime, Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne also touched on the operations launched to tackle organised criminal gangs and racketeering during a conference held at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute in Colombo recently.
කුඩු ජාවාර මෙච්චර යන්නේ කොහොමද? අපරාධ යන්නේ කොහොමද? පාතාලයේ මෙහෙම යන්නේ කොහොමද කියන එක අපි අධ්‍යයනය කරා. අපි තේරුම් ගත්ත දේ තමයි මේ සියලුම දේ මෙහෙයවීම සිදුවන්නේ බන්ධනාගාරය ඇතුළෙන් කියලා. බන්ධනාගාර දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ සේවය කරපු නිලධාරීන් මේකට වගකිය යුතුයි. ඔය ලොකු ලොක්කො ටිකට බන්ධනාගාරයේ ඇතුලේ කරන්න බැරි දෙකක් විතරයි. එකක් කාන්තාවක් ඇතුළට ගේන්න බෑ. දෙවෙනි එක එළියට ගිහිල්ලා නිදහසේ හැසිරලා ආපහු ඇතුළට එන්න හැකියාවක් නැහැ. ඒ ඇරෙන්න ජීවිතයේ අවශ්‍ය මොනවද හැම දෙයක්ම බන්ධනාගාරය ඇතුලේ තිබුණා. අර අරුණ පත්‍රයේ වීකෙන්ඩ් එක තිබුණා මීගමුව බන්ධනාගාරය ඇතුලේ තිබිච්ච සැප පහසුකම් හිරකාරයින්ට. මම දන්නේ උපුල්දෙනිය මහත්මයා කැමති වෙයිද කියලා මම මේක කියනවට මේ ළඟදී මට තුමා මේ පුදුමයට නැත්නම් සර්ප්‍රයිස් එකකට පත් වෙලා මට වීඩියෝ ක්ලිප් එකක් එව පොඩි එකක් බන්ධනාගාරයේ නිලධාරියෙක් කංජිපානි ඉම්රාන්ගේ සෙල් එකට ගිහිලා වඳිනවා මේ. අපිට වැඩ කරන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඔන්න ඕවාගේ අයවලුනුත් සමගයි. කෝටි 40කට වැඩිය වටිනා මුදල්, දේපල, වාහන, නිවාස දැන් අපි අත්අඩංගුවට අරගෙන තියෙනවා. අද්‍රව්‍ය කාර්යාංශයේ නිලධාරීන් ළඟ තිබිච්ච ඒවා. ඉස්සෙල්ලාම ඇතුළ සුද්ධ කරගෙන ඉන්න ඕනේ.
We will see you shortly after this break. Stay tuned.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Parliamentarian-elect of the Samagi Janabalavega, Dr. Harsha De Silva, is in doubt whether the government has any future plans for the information technology sector. Addressing a media briefing, he highlighted the lack of a cabinet position designated for the subject, while also criticising the government for not involving professionals who came through Vietmaga in the cabinet.
ජනතාව ලොකු බලාපොරොත්තුවක් තියාගෙන තමයි මේ ආණ්ඩුව පත් කරගත්තේ. නමුත් මේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය පත් කිරීමේදී මම දකින විදියට ලොකු හිඩසක් තියෙනවා. ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා අර පරණ සම්ප්‍රදායන දේශපාලනය යෙන් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා අලුත් වෘත්තීය වේදීන් සමග එකතු වෙලා යන වැඩපිළිවෙලක් ඉදිරිපත් කරයි කියලා. නමුත් එහෙම දෙයක් අපිට පේන්නේ නැහැ මේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේදී. අත වශයෙන්ම වියත්මග නියෝජනය කරපු කිසිම පුද්ගලයෙක්ට කැබිනට් ඇමතිකමක් ලැබිලා නැහැ. ඔවුන් 4 දෙනෙක්ට රාජ්‍ය ඇමතිකම් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා ජනාධිපතිතුමා වෙන්න කලින් ඔහු තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණය පිළිබඳව කතා කරා. වියත්මගේ තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණය ලොකුවට ඉස්සරහට අරගෙන යන බව ඔහු මේ ජනතාවට කිව්වා. නමුත් අඩුම තරමේ තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණ ඇමති කෙනෙක්වත් නැහැ. අපේ රටේ තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණය පිළිබඳව ඇමති කෙනෙක් හිටියා. දැන් ඒක අහෝසි කරලා අනිත් පැත්තෙන් මැටි වැඩ, වේවැල් වැඩ, චීත, බතික් වලට ඇමතිලා පත් කරන අතර ඇයි තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණ ඇමතිකම අයින් කරන්නේ? එතකොට අපි තාක්ෂණයත් එක්ක නෙමෙයිද මේ පශ්චාත් කොරෝනා ආර්ථිකය දියුණු කරන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ?
In other local stories, 4 more COVID-19 infected persons have recovered from the virus and they were discharged from hospital today. That pushed Sri Lanka's total number of coronavirus recoveries to 2,670. Now, it means the island's active cases are now down to 212. In a separate development, educational activities of Dhamma schools, which were temporarily halted due to the COVID-19 outbreak, commenced today under 2 phases. Dhamma schools were opened today for students from grade 6 to 13, while students of grade 5 or make that 1 to 5 will receive the chance to attend from the 23rd of this month. In the meantime, more Sri Lankans who were stranded in foreign countries due to the COVID-19 outbreak have been repatriated. Accordingly, 322 Sri Lankans from the United Arab Emirates and 22 from Qatar arrived in the country this morning. In addition, a flight carrying 150 Sri Lankans from Oman landed at the Matala Rajapaksa International Airport last night. All returnees were subjected to PCR tests at the airport premises upon arrival. Now, Saudi Arabia's consumer price index jumped 6.1% in July compared with a year earlier, boosted by a tripling of a value-added tax. The inflation rate in June was 0.5%, the smallest annual increase since January, before the VAT increase to 15% from 5% came into effect on the 1st of July. The jump in annual inflation reflected price increases in most categories, where the food and transport were major contributors, rising by 14.6% and 7.3% respectively. Saudi Arabia, the world's biggest oil exporter, said in May that it would triple VAT as it sought to shore up finances hit by the twin shock of low fuel prices and the coronavirus pandemic. Now, the Mattala Rajpaksha Hambantota airport that had served nothing more than a storage facility for paddy during the government of good governance marked another milestone today. During the early hours, the airport began its operations to export locally produced vegetables and fruits. It recommenced overall export operations last week. Salam Air Flight ST-1431, which repatriated 150 Sri Lankans from Oman, returned to its country of origin once again with a consignment of around 4,000 kilograms of locally produced vegetables and fruits on board. The move is welcome news since the island is attempting to regain its footing in the export sector, which suffered a great loss during the coronavirus pandemic. According to data released by the Export Development Board, export earnings for the month of July passed the 1 billion rupee mark last month. More promisingly, the figure is better than the corresponding period of 2019. Now, the Colombo Bourse is on the verge of another fresh week, and the expectation is that there would be considerable interest in the banking and plantation sector counters during the week ahead. Sri Lankan shares rose for a fourth straight session last Friday, helped mainly by gains in industrial stocks. Now, let's take a look at what we can expect in the market in the upcoming week.
With the release of better than expected quarterly results, the most counters we expect market to maintain on a positive drive and heavy interest on the continued flow on the banking sector counters and selective plantation counters too. And we expect the retail activity to flourish. And we expect the selling side to be subdued by the release of the results coming in the listed companies in the next week.
We will see you again with news from overseas. Stay tuned. Welcome back to First at 9. Now, US President Donald Trump says that he would trigger a return of all UN sanctions on Iran using a provision in the 2015 nuclear deal known as Snapback as early as next week. His comments come at the heels of his country's defeat in an attempt to get an arms embargo on Tehran extended at the United Nations Security Council. Meanwhile, Chinese tech giant Alibaba is also in Trump's radar, with the US president saying whether to ban the company in the US is being looked into. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said that Washington had suffered a defeat in its bid to get a UN arms embargo on Tehran extended. In a UN Security Council vote on the US effort on Friday, Russia and China voted against, while 11 members abstained, including France, Germany and Britain. The United States and the Dominican Republic were the only votes in favor. In a televised speech, Rouhani said that it is the first time that the US have proposed a resolution to the UN Security Council and only a small island nation had voted in favor of it. The UN decision was also welcomed by Tehran residents. The UN arms embargo on Iran is due to expire in October under a 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and world powers, which provided for many international sanctions against Iran being lifted in exchange for curbs on Iran's nuclear program. Washington, however, withdrew from the deal in 2018. US President Donald Trump, however, says that he would move next week to trigger a return of all UN sanctions on Iran using a provision in the nuclear deal known as Snapback.
When will you trigger a snapback of sanctions on Iran?
Well, we knew what the vote was going to be, but we'll be doing a snapback. You'll be watching it next week.
Trump also said that he did not plan to participate in a video summit on the issue proposed by Russian President Vladimir Putin until after the November 3rd election.
If I could follow up, President Putin wants to hold a video summit on this subject.
He is
Are you wanting to do that?
Probably not. No, I think we want to wait till after the election. Look, Iran wants me to lose so badly. Iran is a whole different ballgame right now. They haven't been sponsoring terror. because they don't have very much money to sponsor terror, and they know we just captured 4 Iranian ships and we brought them into Houston. They were going to Venezuela. They're not supposed to be doing that. Iran would love to have me defeated.
The US president's focus was not only on Iran, but on China as well. He also touted recent Chinese agriculture purchases and said he was looking into whether Chinese technology giant Alibaba should be banned in the United States. Trump has been piling pressure on Chinese-owned companies by vowing to ban short video app TikTok from the US. The United States ordered ByteDance on Friday to divest the US operations of TikTok within 90 days in its latest effort to ramp up pressure on the Chinese company over concerns about the safety of the personal data it handles.
So China's been buying a lot of things, and they're doing that to keep me happy, but they're dreaming about Joe Biden. Well, the big thing is Huawei, right? Huawei's not here, and Huawei I'm not allowing. And I've told European countries and others, Australia has been fantastic as an example, and we told certain countries that we're thinking about Huawei, that's okay, you can use them, but we're not going to be sharing intelligence, and they've all backed away. You look at the UK, it looked like they were going that way, and now they've backed out. Scotland Yard.
Are there other particular companies?
There are we're looking at other things, yes, we are.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is under growing pressure to postpone the general elections set for mid-September owing to the resurgence of COVID-19 in the country. She had not been inclined towards any postponement of the polls and is due to make a decision on the matter tomorrow. In the meantime, data show that over 7% of total coronavirus infections in the United States are children, and that the rate of infections among children there has been on the rise. The United States for some time has been the worst COVID-19 hit country in the world, with the number of cases exceeding 5.5 million, accompanied by over 172,000 deaths. The country's coronavirus numbers are the highest in comparison with any other country. New data released by the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows that infections among American children account for 7.3% of all the country's cases. The statistics posted, based on data from the 3rd of August, shows that the number and rate of infections among children in the United States has seen a steady increase from March to July. However, schools and universities across the country are beginning to reopen despite health concerns. Meanwhile, in Australia, 2 of its largest states, New South Wales and Victoria, have reported a further decline in the number of new COVID-19 infections. The 2 states have been struggling with a resurgence of the coronavirus. New South Wales reported just 5 new cases, while Victoria, where masks became compulsory in July after the state became the centre of the country's largest outbreak, reported 279 new cases today, along with 16 more deaths. The daily number of new cases this week is reported to be below the peak of 725, which was reported on the 5th of August from Victoria's capital Melbourne, which currently remains under strict lockdown. In the meantime, health officials of New Zealand said today that a new coronavirus outbreak in New Zealand is still growing, as 30 new cases were confirmed today, placing the country's active number of cases at 69. After stifling the virus earlier this year before it became a public health crisis, and after 102 days without new infections, an abrupt resurgence last week in Auckland prompted an immediate lockdown of New Zealand's largest city. This has put increasing pressure on Premier Jacinda Ardern to postpone the election. She said that a decision will be made tomorrow. New Zealand Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters also called for a delay to the planned September general election. In a letter written to Prime Minister Ardern, he said that resurgence of COVID-19 cases compromises the ability to hold a free and fair election on the 19th of September. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.